Welcome to the Sharpway Show. So happy to have you with me this evening. It's a little bit past 7 p.m. on the East Coast, so you've got to listen to me, I guess. That's the rules. So yes, I'm so happy that you are with me today. And today, I have a very interesting guest. I yap all day long about localism. I do. You hear me talk about it. I travel across New York State and visit the local people and the local diners and gun shops and vape shops and every place else I can find. I do visit them all the time, and I talk about localism. So finally, I have with me someone who is a local legislator, someone who I think is really what made me think about this specific person is I've met a lot of politicians who I think are doing a lot of this work for themselves, if I may be clear. I'm not going to say it while she's on. I want to get her in trouble. I'm not going to mention any names. But I think this person is not one of those people, and I think she actually does care, and she wants to make things right. She is the county legislator from Monroe County, Rachel Barnhart. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for having me on, Larry.
Absolutely. And if you want to follow her, you can. You can follow her on Twitter if you want, at Rach, R-A-C-H, Barnhart on Twitter, or now as they call it, X. Or you can check out what she's doing on her website. Same thing, rachbarnhart.com. So let me ask, I think the most important question that I feel for New York State, and that is so many of us leaving. Right now, New York City, where I live in Queens, we're under 8 million for the first time in decades. We're under 8 million. The state's losing now around 300,000 a year, give or take. It's a big problem. Is there something we can do locally? I know you're not the governor. I got it. I'm just not the mayor. But is there something we can do locally to kind of keep people here, particularly in Monroe County, which has Rochester, one of our larger cities, right? One of our largest cities in the state. What can we do?
It's a really good question. And it's one I've been thinking about for a long time. Monroe County would be in a population free fall if it wasn't for new births and immigrants. I remember, I haven't looked at the latest trends, but there was a time where, you could take a decade and realize that, 30,000 people left out migration, just left. And this is a county of about 750,000 people. So it's a lot of people to leave.
Yes.
But we've been sort of flat because we have, new babies being born and immigration. We have some big colleges here that are, I think, mostly account for that immigration. So what do we do to prevent that out migration?
But hold on for 1 second. I do want to bring this up. People who are listening who are not in New York State may not realize that we have some really great colleges. Like we really have some great colleges, right? Particularly in that area. I mean, RIT is amazing. We have some great colleges. I just want to bring that up. So please keep going.
Yeah. So the question is, why are people leaving and what can we do to get them to stay? I think most people are leaving not because of the weather, or I think they're leaving because of economic opportunity, and they're just able to find better jobs elsewhere, better paying jobs. I personally think we have such a great affordable place to live, even with the high property taxes. I think it's still a great place to be, but people are hearing the call elsewhere. I think a lot of our economic development programs in New York State, and even on the local level in some cases, just don't work. Throwing money at companies that don't end up producing a lot isn't working. Yep. Companies not paying their fair share in taxes isn't working, because we have, certainly in my community, we have a lot of people who can't make ends meet. They're experiencing financial hardship. And we have a housing crisis problem. I mean, there are problems. And so, people are, I think.
So let me ask a controversial question. Mm-hmm. There are some people who are thinking that the economic, the Empire Development Corporation is not working very well, and we should somehow scrap it and do something else. I'm a proponent of scrapping it. I know a lot of people disagree. And if you don't have a view on it, it's okay. But do you have a view on that?
I've been talking about this for a long time. You know, I was the press secretary for Stephanie Miner, the former governor.
I remember Stephanie.
Or the former mayor of Syracuse.
Mayor of Syracuse. Yep.
And a huge part of her platform was that our economic development programs aren't working. You know, the Buffalo Billion. I stood with her outside the Tesla plant in Buffalo. The Wall Street Journal.
Yep.
This big story about what a mess that was and what a waste of money. We had people actually go to jail over the SUNY Polytechnic stuff. I mean, look, it doesn't work. I think what you have to do is create an environment and a climate where people can thrive, where families can thrive, where businesses can thrive, where people actually want to be, build that infrastructure, whether it's high-speed internet, make parks, invest in schools. I mean, make this a really great place to be. And then I think the rest follows. But it's really unfortunate that in the United States and in New York State, we've created this sort of Hunger Games mentality where everyone's just with each other. And it's a race to the bottom to throw money at these corporations who, in some cases, I think would probably go places and do their projects anyway. So I don't have all the answers, but I think we can diagnose the problem pretty well. Is that these programs aren't working and we keep falling.
Well, I'm thoroughly impressed in one way, in that I have met many people who are Democrats who would not agree with you. And you are a proud Democrat. You are openly a Democrat. You're a proud Democrat.
I'm a lefty. I consider myself a progressive Democrat. And I do think there's a role for government to work with business to see what they need and to fill in any gaps. Like, I see that. I think that can be helpful. But I also think that sometimes I've seen a lot of giveaways where I don't see the need, where it just seems like we're just doing it to do it and they would have come anyway. I don't know if that's the case all the time, but I don't know. And we've just been disappointed over and over and over and over again. I covered when Joe Biden came here and announced that we were going to be this big tech hub.
I remember. Yes.
It didn't.
So let me ask you about an idea that I had brought up last year. An idea in an attempt to get, I guess, what more people on the left would like, the idea of co-ops, and an idea that we would pass a law that would say if a company is going out of business, it's going bankrupt, that there'd be a 60 or 90-day waiting period before the vultures can step in, that you would have the opportunity for the workers, if they could find financing, to purchase the company.
Sure.
Now, the exception, of course, is hard to find financing.
Well, that's where.
I'm sorry. I'm giving you my plan. If you feel I'm off, you can tell me.
Oh, it's your plan. I want to hear the idea. Yes. Okay.
So the idea is to support a public bank that could support local credit unions. So local credit unions could support local businesses into purchasing. I mean, the local workers in the purchasing that. Plus, if these people if they're going to go and be unemployed, if they don't buy it, the state would agree to pay all the unemployment up front as part of a down payment for the business, because we'd pay them if they go out. If they go out anyway, then we're going to have to pay unemployment for 6 months or 3 months or whatever anyway, paid up front as help for the down payment to purchase the business. What about an idea like that?
I mean, I like it. Let's explore it. I'm not a financial products expert, but I do know that another issue with worker co-ops, in addition to finding that financing, the other thing that goes along with finding the financing is you actually need that legal expertise. And the other thing that you need is you need to make small business owners aware that they have this option. I think some of them would love to sell their businesses to their employees, but it's actually like a lot of work and people don't necessarily have that expertise. It's just easier to sell it. But if you have a mechanism to say, well, I don't know, we can provide you some financing help. We can provide you legal help to make this work for your workers. That's how you do it. It's really complicated. And I would love to see more of it, but I think it's hard to scale up without those kinds of services in place.
Well, the issue is, I don't know if we want to scale up, right? In my perfect view, right? In my perfect view, if we allowed more support of local credit unions, they would want to do it on their own. Like they would create a financial product, if that makes any sense, right? They would create the financial product. And again, I don't know what the financial product is either, but they would create it. If it's backed by a public bank, then they'd feel safe to do it. And then they'd be the ones, and they get a down payment from the state because we're paying the unemployment, which we pay anyway, so that there's no extra money going to our budget. So the credit union gets a down payment, and all of a sudden we're now having a chance at making this happen. It's voluntary, right? If people don't want to do it, they don't have to, right?
Right. But New York needs to also pass the Public Banking Act so that we have public banks. I mean, we've had such disinvestment from so many communities. I mean, Rochester has a really long history of redlining. That hasn't been fixed. It just hasn't. And we tend to look at people with limited incomes as if they're the ones who are to blame because they have limited incomes. And yet we place barriers in front of people every step of the way. Get a job. The job doesn't pay that much. I don't have childcare for the job. I can't get to the job because I don't have a car because you put the jobs all the way out in the suburbs. We place, and then we say, you can't buy a car because you have bad credit. Well, that's because we have given you so few choices because you have limited incomes and being able to finance your life that you've made decisions like going to a payday lender. So you have bad credit. I mean, something happened in Rochester, and this is relevant to the public bank. Recently, there was this announcement where the county gave a big old grant to this consumer credit agency nonprofit, and they do really good work. But the goal of the grant was, I'm going to help you repair your credit so that you can go buy a car. I thought, first of all, it's such a deficit-based view of people. Yes. We help them get bad credit by, again, limiting the choices and control that people have over their lives. And then we say, well, then we're going to help you repair your credit so you can get a car, which is like one of the worst financial products you could possibly put out there. This is not fixing things at all. But a public bank, something that doesn't charge predatory fees, that's truly there for the community, that helps people finance their businesses, helps people with their homes, helps them nurture a checking and savings account. That is something that I really think we need.
So let me move, if I could, then to another part, which I think is one of the reasons why so many people have bad credit, is our schooling system. What most schools don't teach is basic credit, is basic contract law. They're teaching so many things that have almost no value for most New Yorkers. I would argue, and I think people would disagree with me, but I would argue that our entire regent system is a complete and utter waste of time, money, and energy. Not required whatsoever. In my view, I've never, and I do hiring and firing here in New York City, I've never seen someone pick up a resume and go, hold on, what? New York State Regents diploma? You're hired. Never happened ever. Nobody cares about your Regents diploma. Nobody cares about your high school diploma. As long as you have one, please graduate high school. If anyone's listening who's in high school, please graduate. But I'm saying, I don't think anybody cares what your diploma is. And we focus so much time and energy on that. And then placement. And we're pushing kids to go to college when at least half of the kids should not go to college, at least half, if not more. And they should be out getting jobs. They should be out going to trade schools. They should be out learning trades so they could stay here and make money. Am I off on this? Please tell me. I mean, you're in Rochester. It's a tough spot. You tell me.
I mean, I think it's really complicated, right? You're talking about our school system and financial literacy and trades. You're talking about a lot of different things there, but let's first start with the school system. The school system is being decimated because we no longer treat public education as a common public good. So many people a lot of people, we've commoditized education. So a lot of people are just opting out of the public school system by moving out of the city, sending their children to private schools and choosing charter schools, which are public schools technically, but they have removed kids from the city school district. So what you have is a public education system that is dying because we have essentially decided that if you have the means, go.
But hold on, isn't it always been that way? Haven't wealthy people always put their kids into cool private schools? Hasn't that been a thing for years?
Yes, but certainly in my community, we have incredible socio-racial economic segregation. It's one of the most
Sure.
segregated school systems in the entire country. We
Yep.
always rank at the top.
Yep.
Separate is not equal. The way you lift up a public school system is you tie the fates of all children together. You can't the city schools district is overwhelmed with problems, overwhelmed with families who have who are under resourced, and I mean we have financially under resourced communities here, and then they have so many problems. We know that poverty causes chronic stress. We know that there are just a lot of problems, and those of course go into our school system, and then we blame the school system for outcomes. But you know, I believe very strongly that we need a different model. You know, I think we need. I think we need. I mean, I've said countywide. I don't think that's ever going to happen, and I think I'm the only elected official brave enough locally to say, "Hey, I just think we might need to desegregate our schools and allow everyone that kind of socioeconomic opportunity."
So,
But I got bashed for
if
it.
we're going down that road, if we're walking down that road, are you saying, so I get you clear, are you saying that you would like kids to go to any school they want to go, regardless of district? Is that what you mean by that? And that the money, whatever, would kind of follow the kid? Is that the type of plan you're talking about? I want to be clear on that.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think when people in Rochester say they'd like a countywide school system, they're not referring to logistics, like what you just said.
They're not. Okay.
No, they're not referring to like, I want this model and this logistics and this is how I would do it. I think what we're saying is a statement of values. And what we're saying is that all children should have the same opportunity, and that segregation isn't okay, and that separate isn't equal. Now, the logistics, let's figure that out. I don't know what the logistics would be. And I also don't know that there's ever really going to be a movement to fix it. You know, I don't know what that looks like. Because right now, I mean, I just won a Democratic primary, okay, which was the election. And my opponent actually sent an attack mailer out saying, well, she supports countywide schools. I mean, that's a Democratic primary, and I was attacked for that position. So it just tells you it's still a third rail in politics. So, okay, so
but isn't the issue here, and this is what I always think when I talk about this, I feel like the issue here is, it isn't a money issue because we spend lots of money, right? The question is, where is the money going? That's how I see it, right? Where's the money going? And my gut says, and this might get me in trouble, but I don't care because they're not going to vote for me anyway. I think we have too many damn administrators. They make too much money. We don't respect our teachers anywhere near as much as we should. We spend too much money on administrators, not enough on teachers, and we don't trust teachers enough. We make our teachers go through master's degrees and all kind of crazy stuff. Then they get into a school district and an administrator tells them what to do. Well, then if you're going to tell them what to do, why are they getting credentialed? Just hire high school graduates and tell them what to do. But if you're going to get a teacher to be credentialed, do the work, get the degree, let them teach.
Yeah, it's a hard job, and they are educated professionals, and it is a hard job. I do think that, you know, we need to resource our schools, but I also think there's a limit to what money is going to buy you when we have schools with such disparities. You can't buy your way out of that. What we need to focus on is poverty. It's the number one issue that is facing my community is poverty, because that's when all the other things that we're talking about stem right from there. And I just read Matthew Desmond's book, Poverty by America. And I really think that, you know, what he's saying is we could solve this if we wanted to, but too many people are benefiting from the system the way it is now.
It's a poverty industrial complex. It absolutely is. Like, it's people are making money to keep people in bad spots.
Yeah.
What about an idea? How about an idea to where we use public housing, which is a big deal here in New York City. I don't know how big it is in Rochester, but it's massive in New York City. And almost all of them are failing. Like, New York City public housing is an embarrassment. We should be embarrassed on how bad it is. Again, I'm not aware of how good or how bad it is in Rochester. I know many areas it's a problem. What if we were to have a system of public housing that would be focused on rent to own? versus,
with ideas.
say again?
We got lots of ideas.
Well, that's why I ran for governor, because I want to bring up the idea of rent to own. My issue is, and I grew up in the South Bronx here in New York City, poor area, a lot of renters. But the issue is most people I see, and I would bet the same's in Rochester, most people who are in poor areas, their mindset is not an ownership mindset. Their mindset is in a month-to-month mindset, right? I'm trying to pay my bills this month. That's what I'm worried about. And I can't even imagine going 3 months out. That's like crazy people. I just got to get this. I got to get done this month, right? That's my worry. If we could start shifting people into an ownership mindset by giving some an option, again, an option to go rent to own, I feel like over time, this wouldn't be overnight, but over time, people would start saying, wait a minute, maybe we should start owning our homes. It takes care of the gentrification issue, right? Owners love gentrification. It's renters who hate gentrification. So the gentrification issue goes away. It happened in Singapore. It happened in London. And in both cases, what wound up happening, there were some faults, obviously. It's not perfect. But in many cases, what happened was voluntary integration, both ethnic background and socioeconomic. It happened naturally as some people sold, some people rented, some people bought, back and forth. And public housing became a voluntary segregation place. Would you have a view on that?
Mm-hmm. So, Larry, one thing that is problematic, so I don't know how necessarily the rent to own would work, but people are not, I'm going to keep saying this, people are not struggling because they don't have a mindset of wanting to get ahead. People want to get ahead. They're very resourceful. In fact, people with limited incomes might be some of the most resourceful people that we know. The reason people aren't owning homes is because, particularly in my community, we don't have enough housing that is affordable and safe and quality. So what ends up happening is we have taken away choice from people as to where to live, because the only places where they can live are in places that they're being exploited. They're being segregated and they're being exploited because they don't have enough money to have choices to live elsewhere. We do not have enough public housing in Rochester. We actually have pretty good public housing. We don't have enough of it. We have the Rochester Housing Authority, which has the classic, model of public housing. But we also, a lot of our public housing, subsidized. It's really subsidized housing. It is privately owned. Sometimes those owners do a very bad job, but mostly it's okay. We don't have enough of it. So there was this market study that showed in Rochester, people have really low incomes. So the cost of a brand new unit that, the landlord can maintain and pay the taxes on and everything, it's $1,500. Well, people don't make that much. So there's this big gap of like $800-900 that people need. And so nobody's giving it to them. The government we don't have enough vouchers. Section 8 is capped. So what ends up happening is these folks live in places that are horrible, and the landlords have absolutely no incentive to improve them because they can't get money, or they're just taking every dime they can squeezing every dime they can from these units, not keeping them up. And if the city says, okay, well, we want to do all this code enforcement, guarantee you some of these landlords are going to walk away. And now the city has an empty derelict house and the people have been evicted because of code problems. So the solution is more public housing. And yes, we need people to own their own homes, whether it's co-op model or we do. But again, the devil's in the details. What does that look like? Because right now, people just need a roof over their heads as well. We have a big problem.
So what if we were able to say, relax some of the Department of Buildings rules and regulations, the code enforcement, to allow for tiny houses, which I know in New York City we don't do, but we could allow for the tiny houses, and then allow private organizations to build those houses that want to, as long as they are a rent-to-own model. And if they are rent-to-own model, to give that company or that individual an incentive to do that as they sell off the house, no taxes. Yeah, they pay no taxes once they sell or get rid of that property, no taxes, which means it's a better investment for them And then they can maybe lower the price so that people would be able to move into the tiny homes and gain some ownership on that smaller home, and maybe use that to purchase another one or put two together, or what all the rich people do, right? To do what the rich people do. Maybe they could have a shot at something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a really interesting thing. I'd love to see something like that work. I mean, accessory dwelling units, I believe there was a tremendous amount of pushback. I mean, Kathy Hochul gets lots of pushback on her housing proposals. The one, I think accessory dwelling units are definitely a must. I mean, especially a place like Rochester, people have the space to put those tiny homes for grandma
100%.
or whoever. What the one thing that the state legislature didn't do this last session that I thought was really sad, and it directly refers to what I was just talking about, is the housing vouchers. They were going to pass something like the state version of Section 8, and they just couldn't get it done. And it's just so frustrating because I get calls all the time from people who need one thing to solve their housing problem: money.
Right.
They need.
Right.
It's
What
very
about
sad.
another issue that I remember that has bothered us in many of our cities, which is professional licensing, right? To cut hair, to drive a cab, things of that sort, right? Is it maybe a good idea to let people kind of work the way they want to work, right? The worst example of this obviously was back when Eric Garner here in New York City was choked out to death for selling loose cigarettes, right? Now, I'm not saying everyone should be selling loose cigarettes, but my point is, I think some people, to your point, are very they're very savvy in how they want to make money, right? But often we stop them, right? And the one thing that drives me crazy personally is the way we regulated cannabis. And now Kathy Hochul is saying we want to make sure that poor people sell cannabis safely into their local communities. So the first thing we have to do is shut down these 31 businesses that are actually selling cannabis safely to their community, so we can put our guys in that we've decided are okay, who bought our license to sell it. Wouldn't it be better if we'd have less of a war on Black and brown entrepreneurs?
I mean, look, the weed thing is a complete disaster. I mean, New York State has just completely messed this up. It just couldn't be going worse. And
yes,
we really need to, they just never really contended with what the market is. If you're going to have something successful, you need to look at what's going on in the market. I
literally said we should regulate cannabis like onions.
The black market for marijuana is still strong. We have an officer killed and some kind of marijuana thing. It is still dangerous. It's still, the war on drugs is dangerous. It's failed. And the New York State isn't helping. This is a huge disappointment to so many people. And I don't understand what the problem. It's so messed up. I don't know if it can be fixed at this point. It's so messed up.
That is my worry. My worry is this is one of the reasons why I push the third party so much, because right now New York State is really a single party state right now, right? And it's bad, and not to beat up Democrats, it's bad in Oklahoma where it's Republicans. Anytime it's a single party state, it's bad, right? Because there's no incentive for anybody to do anything because it's a single party state. So in Oklahoma, the Republicans do whatever they want. In New York, Democrats do whatever they want. And I think that's a problem in general. That's my big worry why I push third parties, because this should have been, in theory at least, a Democratic win. Democrats should have said, let's end the war on drugs. We've been talking about it for years. That's what should have happened. Now, again, if we're Oklahoma, that's not happening. I get it. It's Oklahoma, right? But we're talking New York. I really think it should have happened. I'm glad to hear that you're agreeing that it's not going well. Let me, if I could, do some admin real fast. To my audience, if you are listening right now, do me a favor. Please click that like button. I have to get past Mr. Algorithm. I have to get past the algorithm. So please click that like button if you would. It helps me tremendously. If you're watching this on Twitter, please retweet this right now. I know we are a very good-looking bunch of people right now. We'll still be here after you hit retweet. We won't go away, I promise. So click that retweet. If you happen to be on Larry Sharpe YouTube, you can super chat me if you want to. That supports the show and gets your comment right to the front. And do me a favor, this very special person, this Monroe County legislator, is giving us some love tonight. So give her some love in return. Follow her on Twitter at Rachel Barnhart, or check her out on her website at rachbarnhart.com. And if you're listening to the podcast, that's RACHBARNHART. Let me grab a couple of comments if I could. Is that okay if I grab some comments?
I'm looking, I realize there's all these comments. Sure.
Yeah, yes. People do. Most people actually don't watch this live, but lots of people do watch it live. So yes. Legacy Zach says, to save New York is to save America. I agree. I say it all the time, right? If the way New York goes, most of the country will follow over time, right? If you're in Utah, it's like 30 years. If you're Jersey, it's like tomorrow. So I think it's true. I do think that. So Michael mentions that he almost went to RIT out of high school in 1982. Absolutely. Yes. No Soundbites Alive, who was a friend of mine, Michael Voss, he says, lack of jobs, high taxes are pushing me out of the state, Broome County. This is an issue I see all the time, right? I feel it too. I have a pull to move also, right? I've been looking at Chattanooga, Tennessee. I was looking at Charlotte, North Carolina. I was looking at the places, but still I'm holding on in my fake bunker. I'm holding on here in Queens, trying my best. I heard something. I heard that New York State last year lost $20 billion in revenue from the IRS, said, just in migration. Do you know why people are staying? Do you have a view on what I feel is I see people stay for three reasons. One, because their child hasn't graduated yet. Two, because they have an elderly parent who hasn't passed yet. Or three, they're waiting to retire. And then they pack up and they go. Do you see the same thing?
I mean, I think family is a huge reason. And I mean, look, I don't think it's a bad place to live. I think you can have a really nice quality of life here, particularly in upstate New York. You know, I mean, you don't have to spend a lot of money on a house. Although, like I said, housing is a big problem for people with limited incomes. But, you know, I think generally speaking, it's still more affordable than where you are. It's definitely more affordable than some of the bigger cities in our country right now. So I think, you know, I think you can have a really nice life here. But if you're looking for the sunshine, if you don't want to shovel snow anymore, you know, that could be very attractive to some people as well. And the tax situation is a situation.
It's bad.
Yes, I would be. I mean, you've got the income taxes, the property taxes. I would be very interested to hear from people, you know, who did go to Charlotte, North Carolina. Okay, but it's more expensive to live there, right? I mean, so you're paying less in taxes, but it's more expensive. So I don't know. Maybe it all evens out. And
people aren't coming back, though. I mean, people are going to Florida and they're not coming back except for family. Mm-hmm. People are going to Charlotte and they're not coming back except for family. So I think it is a better lifestyle for most people, right? The issue that I have is if you're here and the people will tell me, Larry, you don't understand. It's tough to live here for the poor people. So poor people are moving away. I disagree. I think poor people can't afford to leave. And they're the ones being stuck here. The people who are leaving are the middle class and above. That's how we lose $20 billion. I see it here in New York City. In New York City, there's a lot of people packing up. And for those of you who don't know, in New York City, if you're wealthy in New York City, you usually have two homes. You have one in New York City and then one someplace else, right? Whether it's the Jersey Shore, Connecticut, Florida, Colorado. If you're wealthy, you have two homes. And when the lockdowns hit, most of these people went to their second home to work while the lockdowns were for 2 years of lockdown. A lot of those people said, why should I come back? I'm making the money in my cooler home. I'm not coming back. And I think you're seeing a lot of that happening.
I mean, I just Googled, someone just said it's more expensive in Charlotte. I mean, average price for a house, according to Google, is over $400,000. So that's more than Rochester. Rochester, well, I know the median home price in Rochester is in the 200,000 range. So, I mean,
but Charlotte is a much bigger hub. It has much bigger businesses. You have a much better living standard in Charlotte. Big businesses in Charlotte, and it's a major hub. Look, I love Rochester. It's not Flower City anymore, right? It's not the hub that it was. It just isn't. No. And The crime in Rochester, schools in Rochester, far worse than Charlotte. Charlotte has a much better school system relative to Rochester. I think I'm not trying to say don't live in Rochester. I want Rochester to be better. I think our colleges are amazing. But our high school K through 12, not great. I'm just being forward. It's not amazing.
Charlotte also has a countywide school district. Just had to say that.
There we go. Better school district. There we go.
All right. Yes. All right. Yeah. I mean, look, I think, I definitely think it's about jobs. It's the economy. I think that the incomes in Rochester and the growth in Rochester has definitely not kept pace with the rest of the country. That's the case for all the upstate cities. And, we always rank pretty low for growth. And when it comes to income, when it comes to our economy, and that's not good. I mean, the bright side is we're not in a free fall, right? We're not shrinking, which could have happened, but I would love to see us, grow a little bit more. But, we've just been stuck up here for a really, really long time. And I do think some of it is because we keep looking for these one-shot miraculous things that are going to happen, and they don't happen. And also we're dealing with, the same kinds of trends that are happening across the country. We're moving to this education economy where the University of Rochester is our largest employer. It used to be coding. And that's happening. We cheer when an Amazon warehouse is built. Okay, those are great jobs.
So let me grab a couple of super chats. Roger says, thank you for the $5, Roger. Appreciate the super chat. Massachusetts just passed a right of refusal law. Also, we have an organization on Long Island, forgot the name, that helps transition businesses to transition to a co-op. Yes, I feel like that mindset, and I'm all about ownership mindset. Like I burn it into people's skulls because I remember what it was when I was a kid. And I tell a story often. I used to sell cars years ago. And when I would sell cars,
I said,
Yes, I know. So yes, I used to sell cars. I did. And when I would sell cars, I could tell someone's socioeconomic background by what they cared about for the car, right? So sometimes I'd find people who would just say, what's the monthly note? That's all I care about. It's a cool car, monthly note. And as a new sales rep, I often felt bad. And I'd want to, let me explain the contract. And they would shoo me away. I don't care. How can I get the monthly note lower? I'm like, don't you care what the percentage is? Don't you? And people would say no. And I think the ownership mindset, as Roger's saying, I think is right. If we get more people understanding that mindset, they'll think, I want to own something at one point, even if it's a car, which isn't always a great thing to own because of the depreciation, but I'd still rather them have it. So Roger goes on to say, outlaw private equity from owning housing.
Oh gosh. I mean, what a problem it is across the country.
It is.
Even here in Rochester, I just saw a report, the COCO's dashboard, that our home ownership has dropped in the city of Rochester over the last 10 years. That was very sad to see. Very sad to see.
Absolutely. But look, so let me touch those two pieces if I could, which I think may be interesting. What if we were to do two separate ideas? One of the ideas would be, what if anyone who has a small business in New York State, if they agree that they will sell only within New York State, they're immune from all federal regulatory bodies. And I would also treat all farms in this case as a small business in this case. So if a farm agrees to sell only locally, not across, they can avoid the USDA, they can avoid all those horrible monopolies that destroy them. They can slaughter their own animals locally if they want to. They could sell raw milk if they wanted to. They could ignore that as long as they sell only in New York State. Wyoming has this rule already. So maybe if we copy that, now the local diner has a chance to compete against the McDonald's and the Tim Hortons and all those up there. Maybe that's a plan that would help our local business to move forward to do better.
Yeah, I mean, you keep throwing these ideas at me, Larry, that I don't know a lot about, but they all sound.
I want to have a conversation. That's why I'm throwing them out.
They all sound really interesting to me. And I do think that we need more innovation in government. We need more innovation and more ideas. And we can't be afraid of trying things. And we need to be bold and we need to be brave. I mean, I think sometimes we're just there are so many entrenched interests that don't really want to solve our problems. Right now, you alluded to crime in Rochester. We are like the car theft capital right now in the country.
Yep.
And there's like 11-year-old kids doing it. And so it's so sad because no well-resourced child is going out stealing cars, okay?
Right.
No well-adjusted child is doing that. And then we keep hearing, well, it's the same kids doing it over and over. And so my question is, well, what are we doing for these kids? They're obviously in crisis. Their families are in crisis. What exactly are we doing for them? And so my conservative friends are always like, oh, it's raise the age, it's bail reform, it's such it's a family. Okay.
No,
Listen,
no, that's not the
I
answer.
think, I think we can all agree what we're doing now isn't working.
Yes.
So,
And punishment is not the answer. Tell your conservative friends, stop punishing people.
Well, you also can't lock up 11-year-olds, and not for nothing. What we have right now is a bunch of kids. Consequences actually don't matter to them because they think they're going to die.
Correct.
They think they're going to die by the age of 20. So I'm sorry, but threats of things isn't going to work for them. They literally live every day thinking they're going to die, and so it's the nihilism, I think, is what a psychologist called it. That's what we're dealing with. I don't know what I wanted to see this like youth and family task force, which I know sounds a task force, yeah, but I really think we need to get all the disciplines in a room. Really think big. Find them. Who are they? Go door to door if you have to. Who are they? And then do the troubleshooting. What do you need? And I always go back to sometimes people just, again, they need money. Maybe the kids are couch surfing. Maybe they just need food. Maybe the family is about to be evicted and they need help with housing. Maybe they need mental health counseling. Maybe.
But I like all these things. My worry is this becomes a Band-Aid. Right. I want to do something that grows further. So I have another idea for you. I'm going to throw tons of them at you.
Let's hear
tons of ideas for you. What if we had a rule that at the end of the year, when you're going to send your taxes to Albany, you could, if you chose to, take $250 of that taxes and give it to a local nonprofit. So it's a nonprofit period. If it's in your county, it doubles to $500. So now local people could go to you and say, hey, Legislator Barnhart, we do need people to have breakfast for our kids. That's a problem in our neighborhood. Could you, maybe do a shout out to this local group that's going to start giving us breakfast? People can do the $500 times 1,000 times 10,000. Now we got tons of money. And now the kids can get breakfast in the morning if that's what the local community needs, versus hoping that a government agency will somehow show up and do the job. You could actually then hire the local people to do the local work with local money. And particularly if you're someone of stature and you want to help, well, you could give your $500 easily. You could throw extra there if you wanted to, because you're someone of stature. You own 3 McDonald's in the area or something, and you want to be good to your people. So you throw some extra cash there. What about that kind of idea?
I think that you need to have coordination, though, and that's where I think government does come in. And I think that never really thought that government could do it alone. I mean, typically, I think you'd contract with some nonprofits to do some of this work. We have anti-violence groups that are actual experts in this. We're trying a program now where we're actually paying young men to stay out of trouble. We're teaching them life skills and giving them the tools that they need to be successful, but that comes with a check, because they need that too in order to get on their feet. And so that kind of, and they're all staying out of trouble, that kind of thing. And what we're doing is we're not paying them to stay out of trouble. We're investing in their
I like that. We're investing. I like that.
Investing. So that's what we're investing in you as a person. We're giving you control over your choices, and you have choices because you now have the capital to do things. So that is the type of mindset that I think we need when we think about people who need some resources in their lives, because
but let me touch the piece that I like what you're saying too. I love the idea. I think it's right. My issue is, and I think you and I agree 100% on this, going back to the one party system, I think we need electoral reform desperately in New York State, because when you have a one-party system, there's no incentive. And so, and let's be realistic. Unless Kathy Hochul decides to not run, she will be governor as long as she wants to, as long as she doesn't grab anybody's butt like Cuomo did, right? As long as she doesn't do that, she'll be governor as long as she wants to be governor, because no one's going to beat her across the state, and the Republican hasn't won a statewide election in the state in 22 years. So unless we can somehow make a shift in electoral college, an electoral system, there's no change. There's no chance of change whatsoever. And eventually, the state's going to start to shrivel and die, because our budget is simply too high with people leaving. And I don't know whether that's 5 years or 10 years or whatever that number is. I'm all about ranked choice voting, easier ballot access for more parties. And I hope that there are some judges who are watching this, because if judges hear me, you're going to hear what I have to say. You are an embarrassment to New York State, the way you have destroyed our electoral system and you allowed it to happen. You have not fixed it. You've turned your back on the people. You've supported the state against the individual. Shame on every judge who's been part of this. You're an embarrassment. Shame on you. Thank you. I feel better now saying that.
I don't know which cases you're talking about, but okay.
Yes. No, I actually sued the state twice last year because the Republicans sued me off the ballot. And last year was the first time in 80 years there was no independent candidate for governor on the ballot in New York State.
Okay, I was familiar with your run, and I apologize for not realizing that had happened. So so I'll take them one by one. We do need electoral reform. I'm not sure it would mean we would get a Republican governor, because we do.
No, we would not, but we might have better chances.
Yes. But the state's just really blue. But I do think on the local level, I mean, in Rochester, we had in 2021, for the first time in modern political history, more Democrats voted in the primary than the general election, because the primary has become the election. And so, but that's a problem, because what's ended up happening at the local level is you have basically this elite set of voters that picks their representatives in primaries in districts like mine, which is heavily Democratic. So I just won re-election for 4 years because I don't have an opponent. Why would a Republican run in a district that is so heavily Democratic?
No one has run in my district in 10 years.
But here's what we can do. Okay, here's what we can do to fix it. Yes to ranked choice voting, because particularly in multi-candidate races, which we would have if we did this. Open primary system. When I say open primary, I don't mean you pick, I'm going to vote in the Republican primary, I'm going to vote in the Democratic primary, and that count. No, I mean everybody votes in the same primary, and the top 4 or 5 candidates move on to November and you rank them. That's what you do. So you could have technically all Democrats on the ballot in November. And California, I think, does the top final 2. And there are a lot of nonpartisan municipal elections, like in Boston and Dallas, where you have often 2 Democrats on the ballot in the fall, because they did a run. They did a primary where everyone could vote, and it's usually all Democrats anyway. But the reason I like this is because more people vote in November.
Right.
More people understand to vote in November. Voting in a June primary in New York State is a muscle. You need that muscle memory.
Yes.
It takes a lot to teach people to do that. I've now run 6 campaigns in primaries, all of them. And it's so hard to teach people to vote in primaries, and it's not their fault. It's the fault of a system that systematically disenfranchises people who don't, who may not know that's how you choose your representative. Now, in the city of Rochester, so I mean, interestingly, the new district that I just ran in, if you will indulge me for a sec, this is a classic example. This is a classic example of the failure of our primary system. We had redistricting. I ran in a new district. For the first time, I ran in a district that has city and suburbs. The suburban portion of my district had 60% of the Democrats in the district, but they made up only 38% of the voters on primary day, because they hadn't had a primary in a long time. So instead of understanding that every year, like the city voters, they understood. I gotta vote in the primary. And they had multiple, and the city voters had multiple things on their ballot because we decide things in June. Whereas the suburban place is used to deciding everything in November.
Right.
I would knock on doors in the suburban part of the district and say, oh, I've got a new district. I'm here. And, oh, I'm so glad. I love Democrats. I love you. Okay, but listen, I'm running against another Democrat. So you got to vote in June. Huh?
Right. Right.
And ultimately I managed to get a lot of them out who supported me up there, and I won up there, but it was tough because when you have conversations like that, oh gosh, it's going to be hard to get those folks out. In the city, I did not have those kinds of conversations. People were like, all right.
But there's another piece I want to bring up here too, right? If you look at the two, in theory, independent parties they're not really independent. The Working Families Party and Conservative Party.
Yeah.
They have no power.
So
right?
they use I call them. So first of all, let me just say that I love the Working Families Party. I have had their endorsement and I appreciate I appreciate their influence on local politics, and I'm very aligned with them. But they really function like a PAC, right? And when I say that, I don't necessarily mean in donations, but they are extremely getting their line means they're just really influential because they know people want their lines. And the same with the Conservative Party. I would argue that fusion balloting, though, does lead to corruption. We see that over and over with the judicial races in Monroe County. You've got conservative judges doing opportunity to ballot to get that Working Families Party line.
Right.
They're conservatives. And so what they do is they register their family and friends to be Working Families Party members. And because they might only need 50 votes or something to win a primary, so they get all their family and friends to register as Working Families Party people so they could game the line. Listen, no, that should be illegal. But it's been tested in the courts. It's not illegal. People are allowed to register whatever they want so they can vote wherever they want. Fusion balloting is wrong, I think, even though, and I say that out of complete love for the Working Families Party, but fusion, they're working in the system that they have and they're doing a good job. But fusion balloting leads to corruption, in my opinion. Why not just say Rachel Barnhart, D, WFP? One line. And I also, though, think the other problem I have with fusion balloting is this. Do they think voters are dumb? Do they think just because they think they're going to vote for you on a different line just because you're on a different line? I mean,
but they do. Oh, no, they do. I see this across the state all the time. The amount of conservatives who told me, I'm going to send the Republicans a message. I'm going to vote for Lee Zeldin on the conservative line, which is absolutely stupid, makes absolutely no sense.
If they didn't have that line, they'd still vote for Lee Zeldin.
But my point is, no, some of them wouldn't.
Okay.
Because some of them were angry. They think that Republican Party isn't conservative enough for them. Some of them would stay home. I don't know what percentage that is. Say 10%, right? Whatever that number is. Some of those conservatives would stay home, but they have a conservative line. And they think they're bringing the Republican Party more conservative by voting for the guy on the conservative line. By the way, if you did that and you're listening, you did not. You didn't do anything. You changed absolutely nothing. You were fooled, and you got the conservative line to stay on as a party.
Are you running for something this year?
No, not at all. I'm out trying my damnness to get people to see what I'm trying to do, make as many friends as I possibly can, because next year I need to get 60,000 signatures in 6 weeks so that I can get a real independent party to exist in New York State.
Right. Now, but you don't just need to get the signatures, right? You also need to get the votes. Am I
correct?
Right
I need 2% of the electorate in November.
I think we should really simplify this whole thing and just move to the final open primary and the final four, final five. Alaska did it. It's a very interesting system. Yep. I also think too that the petitioning to get on the ballot, is, it's just crazy at this point. And I'm a monster door knocker. Everyone knows it about me. I'm knocking on more doors than anybody. But I had to get almost 500 signatures, which of course then you've got to try to double to get on the ballot for a district that is a tiny fraction of the size of an assembly district, and they had to get 500. So it's like,
right.
It makes no sense. it's just a barrier to people. And then
Yes.
it's just a barrier. And I just think it's just crazy. It's just a way to stop people from running, which, that's the name of the game.
That's what they're trying to do. Yes. A judge actually told me in Steuben County, he said straight up, he said, oh no, these are good laws. They're meant to make sure that no one who can't win can't be on the ballot. He literally said that out loud.
I don't know that I buy that, because there are a lot of people who can get on the ballot with the signatures and still run terrible campaigns.
I know, but my point is he should never say that. And it's an embarrassment that he said that. He shouldn't believe that. He should actually understand that voting is part of the First Amendment. You should be able to vote for whoever you want to. And the idea of printing ballots is a relatively new thing. People used to just vote for whoever they wanted to vote for. Those days are long gone now.
Sure. And I like the idea of mail voting, the early voting. I mean, just make it easy for people to vote. And I think I just think that we have so many barriers up to participation. And right now, the primary system, particularly in places like where I live, it's just the turnout is going the wrong way that it should, and it's just not a great trend.
People are giving up. They are giving up. It's true.
Well, and for good reason. We don't have many choices.
Yes. So let me do a little bit more admin if I could, guys. Again, if you are watching, please do me a favor, click that like button. It does matter. I got to get past Mr. Al Rhythm. I got to get past him. So please click the like button so I can do that. If you're watching on Twitter, please retweet this. Every time you retweet it, more people see it, or re-exit, whatever the thing is now. I don't know whatever it's called. Please do that. If you're watching on YouTube, you can always super chat me if you like. Please do so. But whatever you do, please support this wonderful person who decided to give us an hour of her time. She's so good to us, Rachel Barnhart. Please follow her on Twitter at Rach Barnhart, or check her out on her website, rachbarnhart.com. Let me grab a couple of comments if I could. Sam says, I did my master's degree, thesis work, looking at empire zones in general. I didn't find any strong evidence of meaningful growth relative to the rest of the state. I think that's true. I think you would agree with that too, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah, empire zones were all told. We knew that those were a failure and that they didn't work.
Yes, absolutely. So Sal says, Larry, another problem is that they've made capital gains taxes to the level that I used to have under 10K in stocks that I had to dump because I couldn't afford to keep paying the state $200 to $300 a year. My issue with that type of taxation, obviously I'm a libertarian, I don't want taxation. Of course I don't. However, to be realistic, I would rather give someone that benefit if they're doing something to help, right? Getting people to do the right thing. That's why my process of getting rid of the capital gains tax was assuming these banks would then be buying properties, that they would be doing a rent-to-own scheme to give people housing. So if you're giving people housing, I'm fine giving you a tax break. I'm happy to dump all the taxes if you're fixing my housing problem. But if you're not, I'm not sure where I want to go there. I don't know. Do you have a view on that?
Not really.
That's fine. No worries. So you are, hold on, let me grab a couple more of these. You've made Michael happy. He says, I do appreciate that you're answering, Rachel. Even if I don't agree with all being said, I respect you are speaking publicly. Look at that. See? There we go.
Well, I think that's important though, right? Because I had a lot of voters tell me, listen, I don't always agree with you, but I know you and I trust you, so I'm going to vote for you. And I think that's really important that we dialogue. And, I will go on a conservative show. I know you're not conservative, but I mean, you're on some issues, but not, I read your website. I wouldn't necessarily call you conservative, but listen, if I can expose people to some different points of view and you listen to different points of view, I think that's good, because I know I've changed some minds. So I think it's important to engage, or else what are we doing here?
And we also want to be able to build coalitions based upon issues, right? Sure. So when there are things that we agree upon, we should be able to get together and go, no, we're together on this. Let's move this issue forward and get something done, versus going, wait a minute, what did my party leadership say? I must do whatever my party leadership says. It's much better if you can create some kind of coalition. Patty says, I cannot leave. I cannot afford to live here or leave. I'm between a rock and a hard place. Just what you're talking about.
Well, listen, I just mentioned I am now will be representing as of January, a suburban area. They just did this reassessment, and the housing market's been a little crazy in Rochester, like it is everywhere else. And so a lot of them are senior citizens. I had a couple seniors cry because they really thought they would not be able to afford their taxes or be able to stay in their homes anymore. It was very distressing. So just because an assessment went up doesn't necessarily mean your taxes are going to go up that much. Not if everybody's did, and if the town, is responsible. But it just is really heartbreaking that people are on fixed incomes and have that kind of stress over their financials and over just having a roof over their head and the house that they worked for to that maybe might be paid off already. It's just really sad. So I think we have to always be very mindful of that.
Yeah, I've always thought that if we wanted to get more people to retire here, that we should actually do a reduction in property tax once someone hits 65.
Well, we do have those benefits in New York State, but I'd be curious. Oh, sorry, my dog just decided they were going to bark. So sorry.
Oh, that's awesome. No, dogs are good. I like you more now. Dogs are awesome.
Oh yeah, I got 2 of them, and I keep the shades down now because they keep barking out the window. So when I'm on a call, but they had other ideas right now, so
that's okay. But yeah, so the idea that I had was once you hit 65, your property tax goes down 5% every year till 85, down to 0. Trying to get more people to stay here, retire here, spend their pensions here. As you know, we're getting killed with these pensions. People are getting their pensions and spending them in Florida. Yeah. I want you to spend your pension in New York State. You earned it in New York State. Spend it in New York State.
My parents are retired educators. They might be snowbirds, but they go down half the year. And for them, I think I do think it's weather related. I do. I think they just really, really love and a little bit of social life. I mean, they've got friends down there. They built a life down there. So they go December to April, but you can't take that away from them.
Right.
I'm just glad they don't. I'm just glad they're not there full time.
So let me ask one more thing, if I could.
Yeah.
And that is, how do you feel? I know you don't have any control of this. It's just your opinion. How do you feel about New York State? I know some counties do this, but New York State allowing the citizens to put ballot initiatives that will change maybe law and or amendments, that kind of thing. Because I think that if we did that, we get more stuff done past the one-party state. That's what I feel.
Yeah. So, okay. First, Patricia asked what kind of dogs. I have a beagle and a sheepadoodle.
Nice.
Penny and Prudy. Okay. So direct democracy is a really good thing. Ballot initiatives are a really good thing. And I think we should absolutely make it easier in New York to do that. Petition a referendum. You can do it for certain things. And I think we should do it more.
There we go. I'm glad to hear that, because I feel like us getting past the one-party rule, that is a way of making that happen. It's a way of also showing people that the people want something, even though party leadership may not.
Well, listen, ballot initiatives are under attack across the country, particularly in red states, because people are trying to use ballot initiatives to codify abortion rights. And so you've got a lot of court challenges and legislators who are trying to preempt the right to put things on the ballot because they don't want that to see that happen. And to me, that's just subverting the will of the people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that there's a danger with direct democracy that you could see things that hurt the rights of others, but that's why we have courts, hopefully, that would just throw something like that out. So I love it. I think it's really important. There are some things I would really love to petition a referendum in the city of Rochester. I think I am a county legislator, but I do think in the city, we have a lot of at-large council seats more than district. That's unusual for a city our size. I think we got to flip it. I'd love to see term limits for the mayor. Maybe I'm not a big fan of legislative term limits, but I do think executives should be term limited. And I just think there's always a way to make things better, and petition a referendum is a way to do it. It's just really hard to get. You have to get a ton of signatures, and you probably need to hire a lawyer, and it's just really hard.
Yes, it should be a whole lot easier. I agree. So if you feel comfortable, can I ask you, do you feel comfortable talking about your future in politics?
Oh, sure. I don't know what it is. You know what? I'm just coming off a very difficult primary. I mean, it wasn't difficult. I won with 63% of the vote, but it was difficult in that everyone was against me. Voters weren't, but pretty much all the powerful, the establishment being the mayor, the county executive, even some of my colleagues, labor, all big. I just had a lot of people against me. And the
I
reason
know the feeling.
the reason why I did was because I took a stand in our redistricting process, which they didn't like. I stood up for what I believed in. There's nothing more horrible than redistricting because it really brings out the worst in people.
Yes.
It's all about power. And so I fought for minority districts. Right now, there's a lawsuit against the map because it really did protect incumbents horribly. I just constitutional. So, but anyway, they don't like me because I do my own thing.
I love that. You've just made some.
Can't tell me what to do, and they hate that. I mean, they really, really hate that. And but I'm really honest. I think I try. I make mistakes, of course, but I try really hard to just do what's in the best interest of the public and my constituents. And what I think is right. And I'm very open about it. And I take feedback. But anyway, that being said, it really alienated me from some folks in the Democratic Party. And boy, they came after me real hard. But I ran a super positive campaign, and I'm a known quantity. I was a reporter before I was a politician. So I've been in public life for a long time. I have a lot of credibility. And you're not going to just take that away from me with, a silly smear campaign. That's just not going to work. I mean, Larry, their campaign against me was so silly. They said, she's too liberal for us. And also we think she's going to caucus with the Republicans. Like,
wow, that's impressive.
People like, huh? That's just crazy. That's crazy talk. So anyway, so I'm just recovering from that because I work very hard. It's like you put your life on hold. I work very hard, and I'm just figuring out, okay, what are the things I want to tackle going forward? If you're on my Twitter, you'll see last night in Ways and Means, I went to bat for they're really trying to restrict the ability of legislators to introduce things for funding. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? And it's really a funny exchange that I had with the administration. But so I'm just trying to figure out what are the top priorities. I think for me, it is housing.
Okay.
I think it is. And the youth issues. How can we help our youth? I think those are really big things for me right now as well. But always open to ideas. And but I don't know what's ahead. I guess there's a very, very long way for me to say, I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, never say never to higher office. This is a part-time position. County legislator in Monroe County is a part-time position. And I'm doing okay. I like my life right now. I feel like I'm making an impact, but we'll see what happens. Politics is rough. It's hard.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. Excellent. Well, is there anything else that you want to cover before we wrap this up?
Again, I'm really glad we had the opportunity to chat. I appreciate you having me on. I really did like reading your website. I was real scared. I was like, what did I get myself into? And I read your website. I said, okay, I got this. This is okay. I can do this.
Oh, good. Oh, good. I love it.
Your ideas. Well, lots of ideas. We need ideas. So
there we go. Well, everyone listening and watching, thank you so much. Please check out Rachel, if you would, at Rach Barnhart on Twitter, and also her website. It's RACHBARNHART.com. I will be back on for everybody tomorrow at 3 p.m. with a libertarian out of Washington State. And then at 7 p.m., I'll be back on Friday night. I will see you all.